Welcome back to Camp Conversations Keys to Resilience, the podcast where we speak to different professionals that are on the front lines of life, primarily in caregiving roles, to hear about the spark that brought them to their work and how they keep that spark alive through all of life's demands. Today, I'm really excited because I get to talk with a dear friend of mine. And lately, when I talk to friends, I record it and share it with all of you in this cyberspace world. And today is no different. Doug and I went to undergrad together at Brock University. It's where we first met. And Doug and I were just reminiscing on how part of that undergrad degree, we had a shared passion for the outdoors and getting people outdoors. And on one of the many adventures we got to go on, we were in Cuba, helping with this caving school, and we were laughing at some of the memories we had. So I think of all my podcasts, Doug, I've had the most intimate experiences with you of all my guests. And we have some really great memories. So I'm so happy to have you here. Since our undergrad days, you have been in such a variety of social service roles, caregiving roles. And can you help fill in for our audience what some of those have been?
Yeah, well, thank you, Dayna. I'm kind of honored and I don't know, a little bit nervous to be a part of the podcast, but um, yeah, I've kind of worked in a kind of variety of different caregiving roles or in like social services since university. And one of those was working with children that were having some kind of behavioral issues at school. Um, and so they were recommended by their teachers or their principals to come to this group. And so we would kind of like work through a couple of different models and kind of like get them to kind of experience some different emotions. Um, and then after that, I kind of worked with some street involved and homeless youth, trying to get them housed and like learning some different life skills. Worked in a little bit of mental health and addictions, and then kind of recently finished up working with some elder care and dementia work. So kind of like a little bit of a mosaic, but it's been kind of, yeah, a little bit of that frontline caregiver role, or even just supporting caregivers on the front line.
And I love that diversity of clients, or I never know really the word to get, but the people that we're supporting, I love how you've supported such diverse needs because it gives you that real diverse perspective that all people are coming from different walks of life. And I think we just reconnected in the past couple of years because you have been helping me with my camp framework by coming to the workshops, giving me feedback, asking really great questions. And I'm so excited because right now you are going to be one of the first camp coaches. You're finishing up our certification program. And so you will be Ontario camp coach because I'm located in BC. And so when those schools and support groups reach out from Ontario, we have an in-person person to come out to you. And so I guess what was the original, now that I did a little plug there, sorry, audience, but what was the original reason, or can you think of one that sort of drew you into that field of social service, of caregiving? Yeah.
Um, well, I am fortunate to be the middle child of three, and um, my younger sister was born as a miracle baby or premature. She was 15 weeks premature, and she
Oh,
was in the hospital for 9 months. Two different hospitals. One was in Toronto and one was in Hamilton. And we lived just outside of Guelph. And so my parents thought that it was very important to be in the hospital with her, or at least have somebody from her immediate family there with her every day. That being said, like we were part of a church community, but also like a very like rural community of people that just gave I don't know, gave casseroles or like helped out with a whole bunch of different like household chores, like getting me and my brother on the bus or making sure that my parents were taken care of,
Mm.
because it was really stressful. And I was 3 years old when that happened. And so I don't know, I guess knowing from then on, it didn't really matter if you were blood or if you were not. If you wanted to be related to somebody or if you wanted to have relations, you could.
Mm.
Um, and so whether that was in a caregiving role or if it was just in like a playful, like saying hello to somebody that you knew because they had interacted with you in the past. Um, I grew up in the country and it was it was like kosher to wave at everybody when they drove by. And now I have moved back there, but it's not the same because everybody just drives by so fast and the community has kind of changed or morphed a little bit, but it's all about how you create the community around you.
Mm.
Um, so I think those are like that kind of was like the beginning of the spark, and then kind of going through um like those childhood adventure groups like Cubs and Scouts, learning how the environment interacts with the human being and that kind of stuff. I was fortunate to work at a couple conservation areas, and learn some like, I don't know, nature trail stories. And then, yeah, we went to university together. And since then, it was just kind of like, how do you use recreation and leisure in an outdoor and environmental form in like a corporate world? And
Mm.
so there were times where I didn't necessarily meet eye to eye with the the organization, but in certain points they did see what I was trying to do. Or not necessarily what I was trying to do, it's what I was taught to do.
Mm.
Um, so yeah.
Do you remember? I I love this because you're like starting to spark some memories that I have from our undergrad days. And one was we went on this winter camping trip and they brought in a couple different facilitators. And there's this one guide leader that at the end, okay, two things that I remember. One is that outdoor recreation, outdoor education really solidified the importance of reflection for me because we practiced over and over, like to the point where we're like, no, I don't want to talk about a positive and a negative or whatever, rose and a thorn when we reflected. But it has been such a gift for me for life because it's something that I constantly do is bring that reflection piece into practice. I have an interaction, didn't feel good, walk away, reflect, can now make adaptations to how I approach that situation again. In one of those reflections, they asked us in that outdoor camping trip, which leader did you guys find was more effective? And I remember there was one leader and he was like he took more of that corporate style of leadership where he was, I don't know, like probably quite positive, but also gave a lot of direction. And you felt like you were sort of watched and overseen, and he was the expert and we were the followers, that expert kind of role. And then there was that one guy, and he just sat there I remember like drinking tea the whole time and never
Yeah,
really.
like cedar tea.
Yes, cedar tea. You remember this? And
Yeah.
all of us were like, what is in his tea? I don't know. Maybe we should ask him what is in his tea. And this guy ended up being such an effective leader without telling us anything. He just brought this presence where you ask, like he almost brought that reflective nature into how he led. And I think our prof at the time was like, that's referred to as a leader who is hardly known.
Mm-hmm.
And you really have that quality. Like that is one thing I've always really respected about you is that you come into a space and you ask, like every time I see you, you ask me so many questions. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I want to know more like about what's going on with Doug. And you always have these inspiring stories and inspiring experiences. And I think that's why I've been so stoked on us continuing to connect over all of these years and getting your feedback.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been kind of wonderful to watch you kind of grow and flourish as well too. So um, I'm kind of grateful to be a part of this journey and the coaching licensing part, and kind of seeing like where Ontario can kind of experience what the camp model has to um, offer.
Oh, thank you. Um, Moving away from that a little bit, I I didn't know that story about your sister and getting that additional support from your community, and that really makes sense because so many of the stories you have and so many of the experiences I've had with you, you are a very supportive person to everyone and anyone. So it makes sense that that's a lived experience for you. I'm wondering when you go into these roles, do you ever have those days where like you just don't have the capacity to give, or that you notice you're moving towards that space of like, oh man, like my flame is flickering here?
Well, there's often times, and definitely in the different demographics that I've been supporting before,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't necessarily have the same lived experience. So sometimes I'm looked at as, not somebody that has or shouldn't have any advice to give.
Mm.
Um, but if you're gonna, if you ask for the advice or if you are asking for somebody to listen, I may have something to say after the fact, but you don't have to take it, you know? So there's often times where I do try to be a little bit more quiet or a little bit more silent, and I only ask you the questions, um, like on our Zoom calls or our chats, because I don't have kids. I don't have a parent that's living in a retirement home, and I don't have, you know, a loved one that's living on the streets. So those were some of the past jobs that I was doing, and I don't have lived experience, but I have a listening ear. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think kind of like circling back to like my sister was I learned the the change in or the value of language. Um, and so I learned that at a young age. And so rather than saying somebody had an ability or a disability, it was more of like they had an exceptionality.
Mm.
And then you and I just kind of recently connected about like, behaviors are more like expressions or like ways of like trying to say something else as opposed to um like a behavior we've always kind of like deemed it as like more of a negative thing as opposed to it's their way of saying what they want to say in
Mm-hmm.
that moment. And that's kind of like how I've really fell in love with the camp model because when they're saying it in that moment, we kind of just have to support them and like navigate how else we're going to change the rest of our next moments with them.
Mm-hmm. And
Hmm.
that's really, you were one of the originals that sparked that recognition that with the camp framework, because we're assessing needs behind the air quotes behavior, that is a theme that runs through all of the work that you have done. So yeah, like I think it's a pet peeve of mine if someone ever says to me, I know exactly how you feel. Because no, even if we had the same lived experience, even for those trips that you and I went on together, we did the same thing. But my lived experience that incorporates my feelings, that incorporates how I interpreted some of those moments, that ties in some of my past life events, is going to make those memories stick in my brain a little bit differently than how they did in yours. And so we're not saying I have the exact same lived experience as you, or I completely understand where you're coming from. Instead, we're doing what you do so well, which is saying, like, I'm going to hear how you've interpreted this experience, how you've interpreted your diagnosis, how you've interpreted um, how you interact with the world. And I'm going to hear the needs behind it. And if there is unmet needs there, then I'm going to be on your team and work with you on how to meet those needs, not because I know best, but because together we're on the same team and we can brainstorm that together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just what you do really well.
I don't know. Well,
You,
I'm also like working now with some animals, and I'm also understanding that there is a lot to be said for our kind of like approach or our response to a situation. And whether you have dogs or cats at home, or you're fortunate enough to work with larger animals like I do, some of
you
them
work
can
with
sense.
horses, right?
Yes. For the last little bit, I've been fortunate to work with some horses. So it's like equine therapy. Um, but they also can understand and they can sense your energy. So um, that's a lot to be said for any kind of approach to a situation. So um, if some if yes, there's that old saying that's there's it takes two to tango. Well, it takes two to argue, or it takes two to fight. And so if one person is upset or one person is like in distress, initiating more of that distress is not going to help the situation. So unpacking it in a way that we can look at through a mental health situation or a scenario like that and kind of like assess how we are and make sure that people are safe before, because sometimes any one of us just needs to laugh it out, or we need to cry it out, or we need to scream, right? Um, Adults have probably screamed in their car at a driver that has cut them off before.
Right.
Um, and maybe their kids have been in the back seat.
Oh, yeah, guilty. But I think, and we can tie it back to what I was saying about that, your leadership style, Doug, and that leader who is hardly known. I think when you tie it back to this idea of the energy, right? I mean, and animals are such a great place to practice this because they very obviously pick up their energy and they're not creating the narratives. We are at such a young age of like where to show emotion and where not to show emotion, that we can start to read it. And so the first step is always like, what energy am I bringing out into the world? And when it is someone like you, I'm guessing just from knowing you that you are the type of person that goes, like, let's say you take the subway somewhere, that if someone's beside you and don't have their phone, right? Phones seem to distract from this, but don't have their phone, that they're the type of person, if you were to say hello, are going to tell you some big part of their life story, right? Like, because you have that energy that you're a safe space to confide in. And I hear this from people in those caregiving roles all the time. They're like, I have that energy. And for me personally, if I am in a public space and I sit beside someone and I start engaging with them and they don't really engage with me, that's actually a sign to me that I'm moving towards burnout, because it's a sign to me that my energy is off. And when I move towards burnout, I do have a more closed off, kind of tight, rigid, high
Mm-hmm.
running energy. And I
Mm-hmm.
can sense that in the people around me and how much they share and interact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how are you, if I can ask more about the coaching and the doing the certification course, if someone listening is interested in it? This is a tough question because obviously it's my course, so I feel like I know you well enough to criticize me. How are you finding it?
I'm really enjoying it. I am finding the snippets of the videos and then the way that you have things written out afterwards. It's a great way for me to watch that video a couple times because it's not too much for me to just like kind of watch a chapter 2 or 3 times within 10 minutes. And then I have the other 20 minutes to kind of think about it. And then if I
Mm,
want to do another chapter that day, I'm going to set aside another 10 minutes to watch a video a couple times and then do another 20 minutes of like reading and kind of like looking at it and thinking about it. And I am really enjoying because our university days, we didn't have online courses and we had to
mm,
do everything in person. And so when we have those weekly check-ins and we're able to kind of talk about it, I, I am a talker, so I'll ask you those questions and I'll say like, okay, I watched this video and I was like, kind of, I need you to talk to me a little bit more about autonomy. I need you to talk to me more about connectedness.
mm-hmm.
Um, and but then I'll try to like make it in like a more of like a weekly scenario of like what I've done this past week or within the last year or something like that.
Which I
So
love because we can put it into direct practice.
yeah. So honestly, I think I don't really know very much about like online courses. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the feedback. And that is like for anyone listening that's has any curiosity around taking the course and doing a certification with us, it is all the modules are online in video format with questions after. And then we do have a weekly group coaching call. Um, one more question.
Mhm.
Knowing that you already have jobs in social services, you have the experience, you have the CV, what made you want to take this framework course?
Because I think everybody should thrive to be a lifelong learner. There's never anything that our brains can't take in. Um, and I think collaboration, when you said it was like a group of us,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's been really great because there are also some really great individuals across the country that are a part of this pilot project, um, who are doing really amazing work. Um, so I think collaboration, I think kind of like understanding a little bit more about how it's not necessarily just designed for a a child's behavior. And when I put the quotes on that, I I refer to it as like that expression or what they're trying to say. So you've also like morphed it so that it's around people our age and older.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like resiliency and motivation, that intrinsic piece.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that was like kind of like really exciting when you told me that this year, that I was like, okay, well, count me in.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. And I mean, that is their goal, is to show everyone that they can do needs assessments with anyone, including themselves, and learn how to meet those needs to improve their motivation and resilience. And our group is pretty diverse. We do have some people that want to run workshops for parents and caregivers on how to assess and meet the needs of kids. And then we do have educators and mental health professionals looking to do many ages. And then we have a personal trainer wanting to support clients with motivation, and a business professional wanting to support their staff with motivation and resilience. And so I think that's the neat part about our group, is that we're learning how to do needs assessment around motivation and resilience and how to meet those needs. And it can be used with such a diverse population. So it can make such rich examples. So right now, like, we're all kind of developing what a 1 day workshop could look like for all those different clientele groups. And it's cool that with the same framework, we're reaching so many different groups.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, Knowing that our group call is after this
Mhm.
podcast interview, I'm going to keep it kind of short. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience, about you or about your experience, whether that's professional,
Um,
whether that's this course?
well, yeah, I think, thank you again for this opportunity to talk about my experiences, and my experiences are my experiences. Um, I hope nobody took anything that I said, um, as like research. This was kind of just
Mm.
us
Two friends chatting.
chatting. Yeah, we were just two friends catching up, and just really excited about kind of finishing and hopefully passing the course, so that
100%.
so
You're
that
an
we
easy
can
prof.
make this a thing, because I think the camp model is a beautiful example about how it just takes a different lens to kind of look at a situation. You can earlier on think it was a 911 call, and after kind of going through the camp model, you can really figure out that it was just like a mere scrape and you needed just a band-aid. Um, so yeah, I think the whole the mental health aspect to the way that you have designed this course is, it's a beautiful way that kind of brings back that natural world, or those outdoor recreation kind of lessons that we learned long, long ago.
Not that long ago. Not that. Don't age us too much. Awesome. Thank you so much, Doug. And if anyone is interested in connecting with Doug, then really soon, as soon as he is a certified coach for the um, camp, wow, forget the name of it. For our camp framework, you will find him on our website. And so you'll have to connect with him, especially if you are in Ontario and want his presence in your space, whether that's like a nonprofit group, a school group, or a corporate group. Um, Thanks again. I really appreciate Doug for coming, for everyone listening. And Doug, I didn't even say your last name once, Doug Wigood. And it's because I always want to add Doug Wigood, and I had to catch myself. So sorry about that.
It's okay. I can be both.
You can be both. It's because of outdoor and Doug. It's just I have to add the more foresty piece to your last name. I will sign off now on that.
But